Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And I am so delighted because Felicity Warner is with me today. Once again, hello, Felicity.
Hello there. It's so good to be back with you again. It really is.
It just had to happen because you are going to be starting a course for the Network, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. Yes. And the first part of the title, I think, is worth a little bit of explanation because it's called Explore Gentle Dying. So
Abs-
now, for those who don't know Felicity, Felicity is a soul midwife. And so, in that context, this title makes sense, but it still needs a bit of explanation, Felicity.
Absolutely. Well, here I am and ready and excited to explain exactly what that is and to unpack it for everybody. Uh, Gentle dying. Where did that really come from? I suppose in a way, the simplest way of describing that is it's the opposite of a lot of the ideas that people associate with dying. In as much as, we've all got these images in our head, probably a lot of the time from watching television, especially watching things like ER and Casualty and that kind of thing, that dying is this very highly medicalized event. And that is something that happens to us, and we have very little power over it. That it involves hospitals or ambulances or busy things, machines that are attached to us, and monitors bleeping, and all sorts of medical intervention. And gentle dying is the exact opposite of that. So it's about experiencing end of life as a calm, a tender, a love-filled experience of transition from one way of being a conscious being into the next chapter of consciousness. So it's a whole way of revisioning how we look at end of life, and also how we can prepare to have that sort of ending for ourselves by planning that and by knowing what we want, and also by helping our loved ones at end of life. Because in that course, I will be teaching a raft of skills about how we can help anybody at the bedside who's in their final days, maybe hours, maybe minutes. So the whole course is quite rich in all sorts of ideas and techniques and skills to share. So yes, but gentle dying is the sort of death that we would all hope for, about really being calm and aware and feeling empowered about the process.
What you were describing before, in terms of the medicalization of death, there are going to be many people out there who are saying, well, of course, we're not supposed to die. They're fighting, to help somebody, to save lives, because that's what it's really about. This isn't about, we ought not be helping people, to die. We need to be saving their lives, Felicity. What are you saying? So what are you saying?
So what am I saying? Well, there lies a very big realization that, of course, just as we are born, we are all going to die, and there is no way of escaping that. And yet, in this day's modern, busy, crazy world where we're all focusing so much on living and life and being who we are, we have forgotten this gentle art of dying, which was so prevalent in days gone by. People knew how to die beautifully. And we have literally become disassociated from that. We've forgotten that there is a way of preparing for death and understanding the journey of it, and then bringing in things that we know will actually comfort us personally along the way. And many of us don't think about death these days until it's absolutely staring at us in the face. And it's so last minute that we haven't had time to do the thinking and prepare for it. So although medically death is often seen as a crisis and a disaster and a failure of the system, you know, somebody's not meant to die, but of course they're going to at some stage. So instead of pushing that idea or thinking of it as something like an elephant in the room, let's talk about death, and let's begin to be comfortable with it, and let's begin to even make friends with it. That's the first step along the way in beginning to create the possibility of gentle dying.
It's a huge, huge issue because, as we've said, in our society, death is the enemy,
Yeah.
and we devote all of our resources and all of our energy to defeat it, avoid it, fight it. And that's understandable because, really, quite aside from the fear of death that is within so many people, the fear of dying, there's the fear of losing our loved ones too. And
Yes.
so, and it's an extremely painful thing, which we cannot ignore. Um, but there is something about the acceptance. And what's come to mind is, some of my viewers may be aware of a wonderful spiritual teacher called Michael Rhodes, who is an Australian man. And I've had the privilege of interviewing him on two or three separate occasions for my original Lightways on My Spirit Radio. And then he was one of my first guests on In the Light when I began it. And people can still find that on Spotify. But the reason I mentioned Michael is because last year, and he is in his late 70s, is it late 80s? Last year, he discovered that he had cancer, and it was fairly aggressive and very advanced. And he wrote about it very eloquently, you know, how he and his wife felt when he discovered he had it. And then he decided, well, I'm not ready to go yet, so that's that. I'm not going. And he's been undergoing some treatment of an alternative nature because the doctors weren't going to offer him very much anyway. So he thought, thank you very much. I'll say goodbye to the chemo, which is, if you told me I'm going to die anyway, so there's no point. Um, so he his son is involved in some energy medicine, which is to do with resonance and these new beds that are available. And
Yeah.
so he received some treatment for that, of that kind. And it looked for a while like everything, he's had some blood transfusions. It looked for a while like everything was going to be moving in the right direction
Uh-huh.
until last week. And
Oh.
we know this because Michael has been sharing this journey with us um, through on Facebook. And when he hasn't been able to do it, his wife has been writing. And just about 2 days ago, you know, there was a very extremely moving post in which he said, my wife is now dictating for me because I can't write.
Oh.
And I'm now having to come to terms with the fact that this is the end,
Oh.
and that the book that I thought I was going to be writing about the triumphs, my triumph over death, won't be written. And he was going through this. It's so moving. But the thing that's relevant here is that he said, you know, I've been a spiritual teacher for many years, and I've realized it's time to let go and to accept
Yeah.
that this is not about my ego, and it's my soul, and my soul is apparently saying time to go. I don't want to go, don't want to leave my wife, but I'm accepting this. and suddenly I am at peace. And I think this is what we are talking about,
Yeah.
is that moment when we understand that it is our time.
Yeah.
That's very, very painful for us and for everyone else. So it's not those accidents that happen, that take us into hospital, where we're talking about real long-term or terminal illness,
Yeah.
where there is nothing more that can be done,
Mm.
except there is. And
Except
that's
there is.
where you come in. You come in because there is. And that's about, as you say, a gentle dying,
Yes.
coming to terms with.
Yes.
So it's so valuable, because I'm going to tell you all a short story, because I think it illustrates this.
Mhm.
About a month and a half ago, I we were driving home from our walk with Teddy, and my partner spotted somebody trying to help what looked like a dying bird.
Oh,
So he turned the car around, and we went back to see if there was anything we could do to help.
yeah.
He stayed in the car. I went out. And there was this man who was absolutely beside himself because he was witnessing the death of this magpie
Oh,
and had tried all sorts. And I took one look at the bird and I thought, no, this bird is dying.
yeah.
He's been hit by a car, he's dying.
Yeah.
And there was another man who had joined. And I just gently lifted the bird off the road
Mm.
and put it where it would be safe.
Yes.
Um, and I just put my hands over him and
Beautiful.
I asked for help,
Beautiful.
because he was in distress, and I asked for help. And I remember one of the guys saying, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "No, but I'm praying."
Yeah.
So, yes, I did know what I was doing. No, I wasn't going to save the bird's life. That was beyond me. That
Yes.
was beyond all of us. That bird was dying. What I wanted was for him to have, as you put it, a gentle death.
Yeah.
And so my hands went over him
Beautiful.
and he immediately relaxed. And they were saying, "Oh, look at that." And I just carried on, and one of them started to pray.
Oh,
So the two of us were there, and this bird actually ended up not having that fear that he had before, where he was struggling, and he just relaxed. And maybe about 2 minutes later, he was gone.
yeah. Yes.
That's what we're talking about, is
That
the
is.
importance. The reason they were distressed is because they were witnessing a distressed bird dying.
Yes, absolutely.
I came in and we changed that.
Wonderful. Well
And
done.
that's the point, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's a beautiful story. That is so beautiful. And that you were guided by your own wisdom, higher intelligence, your soul, whatever, to intervene and to it feels to me as if you were holding space for that bird, giving comfort and cocooning in love, which is huge. And I love the way that you said you asked for help, because you knew obviously you couldn't heal the bird back into wellness. Its time had come, and yet I have such a sense when you told that story of you knew there were kindly hands around you, the invisible hands that would say, "It's okay, we're here to take the soul of this beautiful bird and to help release it back into the light, back into spirit," because I believe that animals absolutely have that as well as we do as humans. Um, I find that really touching, and this is so important as well, that the time had come, and there is a moment for all of us when that time will come. And for Michael as well, God bless him. I mean, what a story to have heard, and again to have shared. And it's very interesting that you mention that, in a sense, there's an understanding, and from his soul to him, it sounds like as if the time has come, and have surrendered into the process. And that is another really important part of gentle dying, is this understanding of giving into what is happening and to surrender into the process. Because when we do that, everything is smoothed out and goes into the flow, the natural flow of life, leaving the body and going elsewhere. You know, our energy is like water, it needs to flow. And when we've surrendered, the love flows through us and gives us this opportunity for a gentle death. So it's really important, everything you shared there.
I have had 3 cats at different points in my life. Each death was unbearably painful to us, and each death was very unique. The first death was, I knew when Cleo was leaving, because I had actually erected an horary chart and asked the question, because I didn't want her to suffer. We didn't want her to suffer, and we were thinking we might have to ask for help to help her go.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the timing.
Yes.
Well, she died exactly on time, and on her own.
Yeah.
But I feel very strongly that that death, we were on borrowed time, because the day that I erected that chart, it looked like she might be going. And what was distressing us was that she looked distressed, and it was out of hours, and we didn't know what to do,
Yes.
except my partner gave her healing and she relaxed. And
Yes.
I did the chart and I thought, okay, I think maybe it won't be right now. But what ensued over the following 3 days is that it felt like there was a golden glow around the 3 of us.
Oh.
And I can't describe it in any way other than that. And then we had moved our mattress into the kitchen so that we could sleep with her downstairs, because she didn't want to go upstairs anymore.
Yes.
And so we moved our mattress into the kitchen to sleep with her. And she took herself off that morning. Um, and when she was ready, and she passed that night. So it was one of those situations that, again, excruciatingly painful to wake up the next morning and find that she had gone.
Mm.
But at the same time, the gratitude we felt for those stolen days.
Yes. I really understand, because I'll share a story as well, because all my work is involved with, is all about death and dying and caring for human beings. And yet I'm an enormous animal lover. My heart and love for the animal kingdom is huge. And we had 3 cats, all very different. And the oldest cat we had, she wasn't very old, Zena, was my soul cat. You know, she knew me, I knew her, she could read me, she was feisty, she taught me so much. And it's just coming up for nearly a year ago that we realized that she was at end of life. And she was such a teacher, because in my human mind, and knowing what I know about death and dying, I thought she will have every ounce of the best that I can give her, because I couldn't not do it like that, you know. So on the day we realized, she took herself off and we found her in the garden, and I knew immediately she was dying. And I sat with her and I talked to her and I said, I'm going to pick you up very gently and I'm going to take you into our bed and I will be with you the whole time and relax into this. And without talking, I know this sounds mad, but it isn't mad. She just gave me one look and she said, no. She said, I need to be out on the earth, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath me. And I need to hear the birds singing above me. And I don't want you actually in my energy field because the pain is too great for leaving. And it really knocked me back because I had assumed I would bring in all my gentle dying techniques and skills to support her, but she absolutely knew what she wanted. And I went back, I kept going back, and she kept, even though she was unconscious, but she still had awareness and I could talk to her telepathically, and she kept saying, no, no, keep your distance, stay away. Eventually night came, and I didn't want her to be on the ground. It upset me so much because she was so vulnerable, and we have foxes and we have other predatory creatures, and I couldn't bear the thought she may be attacked. And so we lifted her into our polytunnel, which she loves, the polytunnel, and just, and I sat with her for hours and talked to her and we said our goodbyes, and she said I will be gone very shortly. And well, I went next morning and she hadn't moved an inch. And it was such a teaching. Her wisdom was so phenomenal about how she needed to have her own death. And it's so interesting because this goes into an aspect of the whole gentle dying thing as well, is that we can imagine what we think is a good death for another person or another being, but we don't always know because they will know what it is for them. And so one of the big lessons there was, and I knew it really, was that she needed to be the master there, and I needed to be the submissive helper and to support her in her journey that she'd chosen. So I really understand all this.
Well,
It was so painful though.
it's yeah, absolutely, because and of course you have to be the support and submit, because it's the person and their soul that's really, they are the main player, not
Absolutely.
us. They are the,
Absolutely.
you know, when my dad was passing, it was in 2020 and I could not travel to him because we weren't allowed to travel. Um, and I I got his carer to put the tablet by his bedside, um, so that he could hear my voice, because I couldn't touch him. So the only thing was my voice. And I spent hours for, I think it took him 4 days to pass.
Wow.
And there's a 5 hour time difference because between us.
Yes.
But my waking hours, in which he was, in which their daytime hours coinciding with mine, I spent talking to him. And I just talked and talked and talked because I wanted him to know I was there. I
Yes.
wanted him to know how much he was loved. I wanted to recall beautiful things about our time together. I
Beautiful.
wanted to um, tell him what I valued about him. I wanted to tell him stories that were allegories of journeys that, you know, to prepare him for what was next. I
Yes.
and I did all of that. Funnily, I did that for Cleo too. I remember doing it for Cleo on those days when we had together, talking to her. And I did feel like I was packing her little bag,
Yeah.
to help her go.
Yeah.
Essentially, I was also going through the process of letting go. And I think when we're talking about this, the concept of gentle dying, it's where what you were wanting to do is you were wanting to take control of the situation
Yeah.
because you wanted to protect her right till the very last minute.
Oh,
And
I did.
you were reminded that no, that's not your job. Your job is to be the support. And so, and I, the last day that, the day that dad passed, that morning, when I, their morning, when I called, I said to mom, I'm not going to talk to dad now because I felt that it was time. And she said the nurse just came in and she said that yeah, we need to leave him be now because it's time. And
Because
I
right.
knew, and I think it's that, isn't it? I had gone through that,
Mm.
entered into the letting go phase, which of course is excruciatingly painful. And
Oh,
then it's okay, I'm going to have to
yes.
let go now. And
It,
I think
yes.
that's what you had to do, that's what we had to do. Cleo couldn't, I knew she couldn't leave as long as we were awake.
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? That happens so often with human deaths as well, that we may have a family sitting around a bedside for weeks before a death, always saying, we will not leave you on your own, mum or gran or whatever. One of us will always be here. And then this happens so often that the family will go off, maybe because the doctor says, can I just have a word? Let's all go outside and I'll explain such and such. And in those 3, 5, 10 minutes that the bedside is empty, that is the moment when the person will choose to leave their body and go.
It there's so much in this, isn't there? Because there are people who are afraid of dying and who absolutely need everybody to be around them.
Yes.
And then there are those who are actually more concerned about leaving their loved ones.
Mhm.
And so hang on. And I felt with dad that that was the case. And mum told me, I think a day or so after he'd passed, that she had said to him that night that it was okay for him to go because he wouldn't have left her.
Oh, he would have hung on as long as he could.
There was no way dad would have wanted to leave mum,
Yeah.
and knowing how distressed she'd be. And so when it was after she said, it's okay, you can
Giving
go,
permission, giving
to get
permission.
to go. And it sounds so odd, doesn't it?
It
But
does sound
there's
odd, but
so many
it's
this, aren't there, where the person doesn't want to leave,
mm,
but until they're told that it's okay, so it's that they can leave without worrying.
yes.
And it's
Yeah.
so it's for us as well to let go.
Yeah.
That's the thing,
It's a
isn't it?
two-way thing. It is, it's huge. But it is said that the dying, they do feel these attachments to us. Obviously, they're like cords connecting us. But there does come the time when literally that magnetic force to let go and to go to the light overpowers and overwhelms and is stronger than those attachments that are linking us to each other. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting indeed. I think as soul midwives, what we notice is because we don't have those cords attached to us that the family will have, is that we can sense this moment coming when the person is ready to go, and there's a shift of energy that will happen. It'll come in, and then that the person has passed that point of no return almost. And the other thing that we notice is, and we feel it more in our hearts or deep in our bodies, is that this expansion of consciousness that comes as people are just towards the end. They are leaving their bodies and becoming fields of light, and that is so powerful when people are dying. Often relatives aren't completely aware of it because they're so consumed with their own upset and anxiety. But if you're an observer watching, and if you're energy sensitive, you can often feel this extraordinary kind of swelling of energy that will fill the room. And I feel that we also get that with animals. It is very, very similar. Their field might not be as as palpable as ours. They have a different feel, but I believe they still go through that same process. So that magpie as well will have had that moment of leaving its body, and there's a liberation that comes with that. There is a, oh, I can step outside it now and and expand into a bigger field. So it's there's so much that we don't talk about enough about this, you know. And I think it's a shame that there aren't more ways of having these discussions, because they're so helpful for people when they understand what happens in that dying process energetically. It's a huge thing.
Tell us about some of the ways in which people might be able to support their loved ones who are preparing to pass, and also how they might support members of the family who are really struggling with it.
Yeah. In a way, those are two, almost, they weave together, but they're two separate things as well. I think keep it simple. Let's keep it really simple. One of the biggest things that a lot of people don't realize is that hearing is the last sense to go. And so it's wonderful how you were talking to your father like that. You know, he will have really, I know, will have been so soothed by that, and will have had such connection with you, and felt, even though you had that huge distance between you geographically, physically, you were right there with him. Because even if he looked as if he was drowsy and in and out of consciousness, he will have heard you. And so I think a great thing to explain to people is that, yes, the dying can hear us. So we are able to really soothe and reassure them by using our voice, which is a great instrument of love. You know, we've all got a voice, and we can all use that to really transmit the frequency of love that we have within us for another person. So that's really important. We can not only speak or whisper or share stories, but we can sing as well. There are, you know, wonderful ways of of using our voice to soothe people. So that's a huge and very simple thing that we can all do. We've all got the ability to use our voice to bring love and comfort to someone. I think if we're helping families to be at ease with our dying loved ones, one of the biggest things that I teach our soul midwives is, when you're in the presence of a dying person and you're in a room where there is dying happening, the first thing I would always suggest is to slow right down. And this is another important part of gentle dying, because if you're in a busy place where, you know, a hospital or even a hospice can be busy, or a care home can be busy, things happening, it's it's quite jarring for a dying person, because you just want everything to be calm, 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 and slow, slow, slow. And so when you drop the vibration and drop the frequency, you begin automatically to calm everybody down. And it's those out of control emotions that are really so distressing for people. You know, everything is magnified when someone is dying and you feel you're losing them and it's all going wrong, and you can't bear the thought of them going. But just as when we take those deep breaths when we're in a state of panic or we're worried, just taking deep breaths and slowing everything down gives people a way of immersing themselves in a tricky situation, something that is very painful. So I would, just as two very simple things, I would A, talk to dying people slowly and in a gentle way, but B, really share that with their relatives as well around the bedside, and just be a rock, be a calm rock for those who are very troubled by what they're going through. I think that is probably a good way of helping.
Sometimes people are afraid of sitting with a loved one who is dying because they're pretty much phobic about death, and at the same time they don't want to witness the suffering. They don't want to um, acknowledge the fact that they're going to lose their loved one. And I'm just thinking about young people who've lost someone recently, some of my young clients. And it's interesting because they didn't want to go. They'd be, one is barely 20, the other one would be in her early 20s. And didn't want to be there, but felt obliged to.
Oh. Mhm.
And the feedback afterwards was, it was horrible, but I'm so glad I did it.
Yes, yes. Isn't that interesting? I would
Yeah.
I would really echo that. I would say that 99% of people come away from going to visit someone who's dying saying, I am so pleased I went. I am so pleased. I think I think it's a real problem these days that we're not used to seeing people die very much anymore. It's only 70, 80 years ago that people died at home. So you would know what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it smells like, even to have someone dying in the home. But now it's become distanced from us. And I think the phobia has got stronger because of that. And a lot of people also are very nervous when they go into a clinical setting, that they're not sure what they can do and they think they might do something wrong. And it's a very anxious a thing to go and enter into that sort of situation. And so I think it helps enormously if you can have someone maybe just a little bit older and wiser and more experienced to kind of chaperone you, and to say it's okay. Do hold their hand, do stroke their hand, maybe give a little hand massage with some scented cream. You don't need to have special skills to do that, but you'll have the connection of just sort of working with their hands, and talk to them, tell them all the things that you want them to know, how much you've loved them, what they've meant to you, and just all those things. And you know what? When people do that, they will come away with a rich gift. There will always be something that feeds them inside and makes them think, oh, that was amazing. So yeah, it's worth doing.
Apart from anything else,
Mm.
it helps them with the letting go process.
Yes, it does.
And that I do find with my clients who are bereaved, that the ones who are able to be there,
Wow.
and it's not so much about saying goodbye, although it kind of is. It's that they've had the time. Do you know what it is? It's they've had the time to process what
Yes.
is happening, and because they've had the time to process what's happening, they're grieving, but they're grieving peacefully
Yeah.
rather than the other grief, which is ridden with guilt and it's an inner turmoil.
Yeah.
That piece is missing, and very often it's because too they haven't had that time to
Mhm.
to process their feelings. I think that's really crucial. That one of the wonderful things that you do is you help the those who are left behind process their feelings. And that's valuable. If I think about all the losses that I've had, the more difficult ones were the ones that were very quick. So, talking about our cats, our second cat died very suddenly.
Yeah.
Um, in my partner's arms, in fact. He had a heart attack. So for
Oh,
my partner, of course, it was incredibly traumatic. And I, who work from home about 90% of the time, was not working at home that day. So he had to be there on his own. And then I came home to discover what had happened. And that was so much harder than
mm.
the first one
Oh,
and the third one,
yes.
because I didn't have that time. It was such a shock.
A
So when we're
shock.
talking about death, again, the circumstances in which it happens
Mm, mm,
are huge. And
yes.
and so, but what I did have was we had him at home. All of our cats died at home.
Wonderful.
And that was huge because it gave us time. I was able to see his body. And I know that people get squeamish about these things and say, oh, couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It
Yeah.
helped me
It's healing.
because it was a Sunday. We couldn't take him anywhere. We arranged for the crematorium the next day, but
Yeah.
we were able to see that he was truly gone. And they
Yeah.
say with animals that it helps animals to see the body of someone they've lost. And I know why. It's because it's the brain can say, oh, okay, they're not there. That's not them anymore. And
Yes.
that's exactly what happened. So we had that grace.
Yes.
So it is about processing the feelings. That's the when we talk about gentle dying,
Mm,
it's for the person
mm,
and for the loved ones too. It's that to
yes.
allow the time and space
Yes.
to understand and process the feelings. Because
Absolutely.
it's so
Mm,
much harder when we can't do that.
yeah, absolutely. And that's so interesting you say about your cat, because again, going back to when Zena died, we put her on her favorite blanket. In fact, she's buried in my thermal vest, which was I'd had for years, and it was my absolute favorite vest. It's like a little comfort blanket for me, but she was wrapped in that when she died. And we brought our other cats to visit her once she died, because it was really important that they saw her and that they understood. And that was very interesting watching what they did as well. One of them was very sniffed all round her, and you could see he did a lot of thinking, and then sort of bowed his head and walked off. And yet her daughter, who didn't get on very well, she took one look and her hair was up on end and she shot off. She didn't come back. She didn't want to come back again. It was very interesting seeing that. But it helped us, the fact that we didn't nothing happened to her for some hours, and I kept going in and visiting and talking to her, and then I anointed her, because again, that's part of my work as a soul midwife. I'll anoint people, and so I did anoint her with great love, and it was the most precious, sacred thing to have done with her. And then snipped a little tiny bit of her fur. I asked permission because it felt slightly invasive, but no, that was right. And I have a little bit now in my own medicine pouch. So I know that if I need some of her energy, I've got it there for myself.
Funny you should say that, because at the crematorium for each of our cats, the hair was clipped for us. and I have clippings of the hair of all of our cats. And funnily enough, you know how their claws, you find bits of their claws.
Yes, yes.
A week or two, I don't know, maybe a week or two later, for each of them, I found their claws. So I have
Oh,
bits of their claws with their fur. It's very precious. And so that brings us again back to the human side of the equation, because it it does help to have something. It's, I'm not talking necessarily about hair or anything like that,
yeah,
but if, a beloved object
yes, I agree.
is really, really very lovely
Yeah.
to have.
It is. Well,
So
the Victorians always did that. They would take a lock of the hair and as a keepsake. And I think there was powerful healing in doing that. It's very primal as well. We would have done that, I'm sure, way back when we were cavemen, just keeping something of the essence of that person, a physical something was really important, I think. And yet I don't know that that happens very much anymore. So again, it's something to think of. Yes.
it is, because this is obviously a very sensitive and difficult subject, but we all are going to be faced with death, our own, and before that, the death of people we love. So it's important that we understand as much as we can about how to help ourselves and others who
Yes.
are going through the process and going through the grieving,
Yeah,
because we want to make sure that everyone is as well supported in every respect as possible. So
absolutely.
it's time to remind everyone of the title of your workshop, where it's happening, and when.
Okay. Well, it's called Explore Gentle Dying, Learn Spiritual Skills for Creating a Beautiful Death for Yourself and Your Loved Ones. It's on the Shift Network. So that's SHIFT, Shift Network. And on this Saturday coming, I'm not sure when this interview will go out actually, but on this Saturday, on March the 16th, there is a free 1 hour video interview about it, which anyone could come to. And after that, the course itself is a 7-week long course, and it starts on April the 2nd. So yes.
And what time would that be, Felicity?
I believe it goes out at 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings, but it is recorded, and people, if they weren't around at that time, would be able to receive a recording if they've enrolled for the course. So you can watch it any time. So
One. Oh, that's beautiful, Felicity. One thing I can tell our viewers is that Felicity is a wonderful teacher, and I have benefited from her teaching myself. So thank you so much, Felicity, for your time today. And I'm sure that people watching will be wanting to know more about the course and will be looking for you. I'll be putting a link to it in the description box.
oh, that's wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I've loved chatting with you as always. And we always go down some extra avenues, which is always exciting. So thank you very, very much for the chance to chat yet again about death and dying. But it's really important for everybody, I think.
It certainly is. Thank you again, Felicity, and thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.